In all my years sitting on this bench, I've learned something they never teach you in law school. They teach you statutes, precedent, and procedure. They teach you how to apply the law. But no one teaches you how to read a person's soul in the first 10 seconds after they walk through those courtroom doors. No one teaches you how to look into someone's eyes and recognize a lifetime of pain hiding behind a carefully constructed mask of pride. I remember this case as clearly as if it happened yesterday. It was a Thursday morning in late autumn, one of those heavy gray days in Providence when the sky hangs low and everyone seems to carry the same quiet burden on their shoulders. By the time this case was called, I had already heard nearly 30 others. Parking violations, red light camera tickets, the steady procession of hardworking people who had made small mistakes and were now trying to figure out how to pay fines they simply couldn't afford. Inspector Quinn, God bless him, has been by my side for years, and even he looked worn down that morning. But when you do this job long enough, you learn something important. Every case matters. Every single person who stands before you is living through their own crisis, whether the world can see it or not. I glanced down at the docket and called the next name, Destiny Morales. When I looked up, I expected what I usually see, someone nervous, maybe embarrassed, clutching a citation and shuffling forward. Instead, I found myself sitting up straighter in my chair. A young woman, no more than 22 or 23, walked toward the defendant's podium. Her long dark hair was pulled back tight. She wore a jacket that had clearly seen better days. But it wasn't her clothes that caught my attention, it was her posture. She walked with defiance, with an edge that said she didn't want to be there and wanted everyone in that courtroom to know it. Her jaw was clenched, her arms were crossed, and her eyes, those eyes told the real story. They weren't naturally hard, they were hardened. There's a difference. But she wasn't alone. A few steps behind her walked an older woman, moving slowly and carefully, the way someone does when their body is tired, but their spirit refuses to surrender. She clutched a worn purse tightly against her chest and kept her eyes fixed on the young woman ahead of her. I recognized that look instantly. I had seen it 1,000 times before. It was the look of a mother who loves her child more than life itself, but no longer knows how to reach her. Her name, I later learned, was Carmen. She found a seat in the front row of the gallery, just behind where Destiny stood. What struck me immediately was what didn't happen. Destiny never turned around. She didn't acknowledge her mother. She didn't even check to see if she had found a seat. That told me more than any case file ever could. "Good morning, young lady," I said, keeping my voice warm. I always try to set people at ease. This courtroom isn't a place of judgment the way people imagine. It's a place of truth. And truth comes more easily when people feel safe. Destiny barely nodded. "Morning," she said flatly, her voice detached, as if she had somewhere better to be. I opened her file. 2 parking tickets, 1 expired meter, 1 no parking zone. A failure to appear on the first citation that had doubled the fine. The total owed was $340. To some people that might not sound like much. But I've been doing this long enough to know that for many families in Providence, a $340 might as well be $3,000. That's groceries for a month. That's keeping the heat on. That's the difference between paying rent and getting an eviction notice. Before I could ask Destiny about her situation, I noticed something that made my heart sink. Carmen leaned forward slightly and whispered something to her daughter, probably encouragement, probably telling her to be respectful, to explain, to ask for help. Destiny turned her head just enough to hear her. And then she laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It wasn't a joyful one. It was dismissive, the kind that says, "Leave me alone. I don't need you. I don't want you here." I watched Carmen's face crumble for just a moment before she looked down at her hands. I watched a mother's heart break in real time, right there in my courtroom. Something in me shifted. I set the file down. I removed my glasses. And I really looked at Destiny Morales. I realized then that this case had nothing to do with parking tickets anymore. This was about something far bigger. When you sit on this bench long enough, you develop an intuition about what's happening beneath the surface. The violations people bring in are usually symptoms of stress, struggle, and lives unraveling in ways they don't know how to explain. And sometimes the hardest thing to witness isn't the mistake itself, but the broken relationships that form around it. I saw a young woman angry at the world. But more than that, I saw a young woman angry at herself, taking it out on the one person who would never stop loving her, no matter how hard she pushed. I leaned forward and spoke gently. "Young lady," I said, "before we talk about these parking tickets, I need you to help me understand something." She looked at me with suspicion. She wasn't used to judges asking questions like that. She was expecting a lecture about fines, responsibility, and consequences. But what she needed wasn't a lecture. What she needed was truth. But that's not who I am. And that's not what this courtroom is meant to be. I leaned forward slightly and nodded toward the woman seated behind her. "That woman sitting back there," I said gently. "Who is she?" For the first time since Destiny Morales had walked through those doors, something flickered in her eyes. It was quick, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Maybe it was shame. Maybe it was surprise that I had noticed at all. "That's my mother," she said quietly. "Your mother," I repeated, "and she came here with you today. She's sitting in this courtroom to support you." Destiny shrugged. "I didn't ask her to come." I nodded slowly. "I understand." But what I understood went far beyond her words. And I knew, like I always know in moments like this, that we were only just beginning. You see, when someone stands before me, I'm not interested in playing the role of an all-powerful judge handing down punishment from on high. That isn't justice. That's theater. Real justice, the kind that actually changes lives, starts with listening. It starts with understanding that every person who walks through those doors is carrying a story. And most people won't tell that story unless you make them feel safe enough to speak honestly. I looked at Destiny again and saw the walls she had built around herself. I saw the armor, the crossed arms, the sharp tone, the dismissive attitude. I recognized it immediately because I've seen it countless times before. That kind of armor doesn't come from strength. It comes from pain. People build walls like that when they've been hurt, when they're scared, when they don't believe anyone truly cares. "Destiny," I said softly, "talk to me. Tell me what's going on in your life right now." She tightened her arms and turned her face slightly away. "Nothing's going on. I just got some parking tickets. I forgot to pay them. That's it." I let the silence sit. Silence can be a powerful thing in a courtroom. Sometimes people need a moment to realize you're not going to let them hide behind easy answers. "You forgot to pay them," I repeated gently. "Was that because you didn't have the money? Or was something else going on?" Her jaw clenched. "I don't know. I was busy. I work 2 jobs. I don't have time to deal with every little thing." "2 jobs," I said, nodding. "That's a lot. What kind of work do you do?" For the briefest moment, her defenses lowered just a crack. "I work at a restaurant during the day," she said, "and I do warehouse work at night, overnight shifts." "That's hard work," I said sincerely. "You must be exhausted." She shrugged again, but I could tell my words had landed. People don't expect understanding from judges. They expect lectures, condemnation. When you offer empathy instead, it catches them off guard. "Let me ask you something," I continued. "With 2 jobs, are you able to make ends meet? Are you able to pay your bills?" That's when I saw it. The vulnerability she was fighting so hard to hide. Her chin trembled for just a second before she caught herself. "I'm fine," she said. But her voice cracked on the last word. Behind her, I heard movement. Carmen began to stand, clearly wanting to help her daughter explain. I raised my hand gently to let her know I would give her a chance to speak, but not yet. "Your mother came here today," I said to Destiny. "She's sitting right behind you. Can you tell me why she's here?" Destiny's expression hardened again. "I told you, I didn't ask her to come. She just shows up. She always shows up like I can't handle anything on my own." And then it happened. Carmen, still half standing, spoke in a quiet, trembling voice. "Misha, I just wanted to help." Destiny spun around and snapped, loud enough for the entire courtroom to hear. "I don't need your help. I never needed your help. Just sit down and stop embarrassing me." The courtroom went silent. Completely silent. You could hear the clock ticking on the wall. I saw Inspector Quinn shift uncomfortably beside me. I saw other defendants in the gallery stare down at the floor, feeling the tension like a physical weight. And I watched Carmen slowly sink back into her seat. Her hands were shaking. She didn't say another word. I'll be honest with you. In that moment, something rose up in my chest. Not anger, I never allow anger in my courtroom, but something deeper. Something that comes from being a father, from understanding what it means to love a child unconditionally, even when that love isn't returned. I took a slow breath and focused fully on Destiny. "Young lady," I said, my voice calm but firm, "I'm going to ask you to do something for me. I want you to stop. Just for a moment. Stop." She looked at me, still defiant, but now uncertain. "You say you don't need your mother's help. You say she embarrasses you. You say you didn't ask her to come." I paused. "But I'm looking at a woman who is sitting in this courtroom at 9 o'clock in the morning. She's not here because she was summoned. She's not here because she has to be. She's here because she loves you. Do you understand what that means?" "She's always in my business," Destiny muttered. "She doesn't trust me to handle my own life." "Help me understand something," I said gently. "What has your mother done to you that's so terrible? What has she done that makes you speak to her that way?" Silence. She's always trying to fix everything," Destiny finally said. "Like I'm broken. Like I can't do anything right." I leaned forward slightly. "Has it occurred to you," I asked softly, "that maybe she's trying to help because she's seen you struggle? Because she knows what you're carrying, even when you won't talk about it?" Destiny turned her face away. Her eyes blinked rapidly as she fought back emotions she didn't want to feel. And in that moment, I knew the hardest part of this case was just beginning. I turned my attention to the woman seated in the front row. "Mom," I said gently, "would you please stand? I'd like to hear from you." Carmen rose slowly. Her eyes were wet, but she carried herself with a quiet dignity that moved me deeply. Here was a woman who had just been publicly dismissed by her own daughter, and yet there was no anger in her posture, no defensiveness, only heartbreak worn with grace. "Yes, Your Honor," she said softly. "Tell me about your daughter," I said. "Tell me about Destiny." Carmen clasped her purse with trembling hands. Her voice wavered as she spoke. She's a good girl, Your Honor. She's had a hard life. She got mixed up with the wrong people for a while, made some mistakes. But she pulled herself out. She earned her GED. She started working. She's trying so hard." I nodded. "And why are you here today?" Carmen looked at the back of her daughter's head. Destiny still hadn't turned around. Carmen's voice broke. "Because she's my baby, Your Honor. She's my only child. And no matter what she says to me, no matter how much she pushes me away, I will never stop showing up for her. I will never stop being her mother." The courtroom fell completely silent. I glanced at Inspector Quinn. He was staring down at the desk. In the gallery, I saw people quietly wiping their eyes. Then I asked Carmen one more question, a question I knew might open something neither of them was prepared to face. "Mom," I said carefully, "is there something else going on? Something you haven't told your daughter? Something she needs to know?" Carmen hesitated. Her fingers tightened around her purse. In that pause, I knew I had touched something real. "There is," she whispered, "but I didn't want to burden her." "Tell me," I said gently. "Tell us." What Carmen said next would shake that courtroom to its foundation. There are moments in this job, rare, sacred moments, when you realize you are witnessing something far bigger than fines or violations. Something that cuts straight to the core of what it means to be human. This was one of those moments. Carmen stood there trembling, her eyes shining with tears she was desperately trying to hold back. Destiny still had her back turned, still clinging to that wall of anger and pride like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "Your Honor," Carmen said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want Destiny to know. I didn't want her to worry. She already has so much on her plate. "What is it, ma'am?" I asked softly. "What didn't you want her to know?" Carmen took a shaky breath. 3 months ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. Stage 3 breast cancer. The words hung in the air, heavy and unmoving. I heard a gasp from somewhere in the gallery. Inspector Quinn closed his eyes briefly, and I saw Destiny's body go completely rigid. She still didn't turn around, but her shoulders rose and fell as she struggled to breathe. "I started chemotherapy 6 weeks ago." Carmen continued, her voice growing steadier with each word, as if finally speaking the truth aloud released something she had been carrying alone. "That's why I look the way I do. That's why I move slowly. I don't have much energy anymore, Your Honor. Some days it takes everything I have just to get out of bed. She paused, wiping a tear from her cheek. But today, when Destiny told me she had court, I got up at 5 in the morning. I took the bus, we don't have a car. I sat in the waiting room for 2 hours before the doors opened. Because I needed to be here. I needed to be with my daughter. I looked at Destiny. Her shoulders were shaking. "Ma'am," I asked gently, "why didn't you tell your daughter about your diagnosis?" Carmen's face crumpled. "Because she already carries so much, Your Honor. She works 2 jobs. She barely sleeps. She's been taking care of herself since she was 16 because I couldn't always be there. I worked nights. I worked weekends. I did everything I could to give her a life." She swallowed hard. "I know she's angry at me. She has every right to be. I wasn't a perfect mother. I made mistakes. But I have loved that girl from the moment she took her first breath. And I will love her until I take my last." The courtroom was so quiet you could have heard a pin drop. Slowly, so slowly, Destiny turned around. For the first time since the hearing began, she looked at her mother, really looked at her, and I saw the moment realization struck. The thinning hair hidden beneath a scarf, the dark circles under her eyes, the way her clothes hung looser than they should, the trembling hands that once held her when she was small. "Mummy," Destiny whispered, her voice suddenly childlike. All the anger, all the defiance collapsed in an instant. "It's okay, Mija," Carmen said, tears streaming down her face. "It's okay." "Why didn't you tell me?" Destiny sobbed. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I know you," Carmen replied softly. "I know you would quit one of your jobs. I know you would put your life on hold to take care of me. And I couldn't let you do that. You've already given up so much." Destiny cried openly now, not in resistance, but in grief. "I've been so mean to you," she whispered. "You've been going through this alone." Carmen shook her head. "I'm not alone, Mija. I have God. I have my faith. And I have you." And in that moment, the courtroom wasn't a courtroom anymore. It was a place of truth. "Even when you're angry with me," Carmen said softly, "even when you push me away, I still have you." Destiny covered her face with her hands and broke down completely. "And then, in a moment I will carry with me for the rest of my life." She stepped away from the defendant's podium. She crossed the small space that separated her from her mother and collapsed into Carmen's arms. They held each other right there in my courtroom. Mother and daughter, 2 people who had been divided by pain, pride, and misunderstanding, finally finding their way back to one another. I had to pause. I removed my glasses and pinched the bridge of my nose, because even after all these years, moments like this still reach straight into my heart. They remind me why I do this work. They remind me that a courtroom can be more than a place of punishment. It can be a place of healing. Inspector Quinn quietly handed me a tissue. I appreciated that. He's a good man. When I looked back up, Destiny and Carmen were still holding each other, but they had turned to face me. Destiny's face was streaked with tears, her makeup running. Every trace of that hardened exterior completely washed away. And Carmen, this remarkable woman, was standing there fighting for her life while still fighting for her daughter. She looked at me with gratitude in her eyes. "Your Honor," Destiny said, her voice trembling, "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for how I acted. I'm sorry for what I said to my mother. I'm sorry for—" I raised my hand gently. "Young lady, you don't need to apologize to me. I'm not the one who needs to hear it." She nodded and turned back to her mother. "Mommy, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I've been so caught up in my own problems. I didn't see what you were going through. I've been selfish. I've taken you for granted." She couldn't finish. The sobs overtook her. Carmen cupped her daughter's cheek. "Shh," she whispered. "It's okay, Mija, I forgive you. I already forgave you. A mother's love doesn't come with conditions." I watched that scene unfold and thought about the thousands of cases I've heard over the years. All the people who walked through these doors carrying invisible burdens. All the families torn apart by circumstance, exhaustion, and pride. And I thought about how rare it is, how precious, when we get to witness true reconciliation. That's what this was. Right there in Providence Municipal Court, 2 people were finding their way back to each other. And that, my friends, is worth more than any fine I could impose or dismiss. I've been sitting on this bench for more than 30 years. I've seen thousands of cases, maybe tens of thousands. I've seen people at their worst. I've seen people at their best. I've seen defendants lie without blinking, and I've seen others break down and tell truths they had never shared with anyone. But there are moments that stay with you forever. This was one of them. As Destiny and Carmen held each other, I looked around the courtroom. The other defendants waiting for their cases had stopped checking their phones. They had stopped shuffling paperwork. They were watching with tears in their own eyes. Because here's what I've learned about human beings beneath the defenses, beneath the hardness we put on to survive. We all want the same thing. We want to be loved. We want to matter. And when we see unconditional love, real love, on display, it moves us. It reminds us of our own mothers, our own families, our own regrets. I saw a young man in the back row wiping his eyes with his sleeve. I saw an older woman clutching a rosary, nodding silently. I saw Inspector Quinn, steady, tough Quinn, staring up at the ceiling, trying to compose himself. These are the moments that make this job sacred. I gave Destiny and Carmen a little more time. There's no rush in my courtroom. When something this important is happening, the docket can wait. The parking tickets can wait. What cannot wait is the human heart finally opening. When they eventually released each other, Destiny turned back toward me. Her eyes were red and swollen, and the attitude she had walked in with was completely gone. In its place was something honest. Something raw, Your Honor, she said quietly. I don't even know what to say. You don't have to say anything right now, I told her. I just want you to listen to me for a moment. Can you do that? She nodded. I removed my glasses and leaned forward, not as a judge, but as a father, a grandfather, as someone who has lived long enough to understand what truly matters. Destiny, I said, when you walked into my courtroom this morning, I saw a young woman angry at the world. I saw someone who had built walls so high that even her own mother couldn't reach her. And I understood it. Life is hard, especially for someone who had to grow up too fast, who had to work twice as hard just to survive. She cried quietly as I spoke, but she kept her eyes on me. But I also saw your mother walking behind you. I continued. I saw her watch you with so much love it took my breath away. And I saw you dismiss her. I saw you laugh at her. And that bothered me, not because I wanted to punish you, but because I knew you didn't understand what you had. I paused and let the words settle. I've had mothers come into this courtroom whose children never showed up. I've seen parents weep because their sons were in jail, on the streets, or worse. I've seen elderly parents who haven't heard from their children in years. I leaned in slightly. Every single one of them would give anything to have what you have right now. Destiny lowered her head. Your mother is fighting for her life, I said gently. She's fighting with everything she has, and she chose to spend her strength showing up for you. The courtroom remained silent. And that, I said, is something you protect. You don't push it away. You don't take it for granted. Destiny nodded through her tears. And in that moment, I knew the most important judgment of the day had already been made. And instead of resting, instead of taking care of her own fragile body, she got on a bus at the crack of dawn to be here for you. Not because she had to, not because anyone asked her to, but because that is what mothers do. That is what love does. It shows up when it's inconvenient. It shows up when it's exhausting. And most of all, it shows up when it's hard. I took a slow breath and let the moment settle. Now I'm going to tell you something, I said, and I want you to hear me carefully. I leaned back slightly. I've been married for over 50 years. I have children, I have grandchildren. And if there's one lesson life has taught me, it's this: we don't get our loved ones forever. Time moves fast, faster than we ever expect. And the things we say to each other, the way we treat each other, those things matter. They leave marks. I gestured gently toward Carmen. That woman standing beside you is a gift, Destiny. She's a gift you received the day you were born. And she has loved you every single day since. Even when you pushed her away. Even when you said hurtful things. Even when you acted like you didn't need her. I paused. That kind of love, I said quietly, is the rarest thing in this world. Destiny was sobbing openly now, but she nodded through her tears. I want you to make me a promise, I said. Not for this court. Not because I'm asking you as a judge, but because I'm asking you as someone who cares about what happens to you. She looked up at me. I want you to promise me that you will cherish your mother, that you will call her, that you will spend time with her, that you will tell her you love her every single day you get the chance. My voice softened. Because there will come a day when you pick up that phone to call her, and she won't answer. And when that day comes, you don't want to be carrying regret. The courtroom was completely silent except for Destiny's quiet sobs and Carmen's gentle whispers of comfort. I looked at this young woman, who had walked in angry and armored, and saw someone broken open but renewed. And I felt something I feel often in this courtroom. Hope. Hope that people can change. Hope that walls can come down. Hope that love, when finally allowed in, can heal even the deepest wounds. I put my glasses back on. Now, I said, let's talk about these parking tickets. For the first time that morning, Destiny let out a small, tearful laugh. The courtroom followed. The tension eased just a bit. Even in the heaviest moments, there has to be room for humanity. We turned to the matter at hand. The tickets. The 3D40. The failure to appear. I reviewed the file once more, then looked at Destiny and Carmen standing together, mother and daughter united in a way they hadn't been when they entered my courtroom. Destiny, I asked, if I impose the full fine today, would you be able to pay it? She shook her head. No, Your Honor, I'm barely making rent. She hesitated, then glanced at her mother. Carmen spoke softly. She's been sending money to me, Your Honor, to help with my medical bills, even though I told her not to, even though she doesn't have it. I looked at Destiny with new eyes. Here was a young woman working 2 jobs, barely sleeping, carrying herself with anger, and all along, she had been quietly helping her mother. She just hadn't known how to say it out loud. Sometimes love gets lost in translation. Sometimes it shows up in actions instead of words. Destiny, I see you. I see who you are beneath all that armor. You're not a bad person. You're a young woman who's been fighting to survive, carrying more than anyone should have to carry alone. She cried silently. And today, I continued, you learned something important. You don't have to do it alone. You have a mother who loves you. Let her help you. And let yourself love her back, openly, without fear. Here's what I'm going to do, I said. She braced herself. I'm dismissing the failure to appear penalty. That reduces your balance to 170 die. She exhaled in relief, but I wasn't finished. I'm not going to make you pay that today. Instead, I want you to take that money and spend it on your mother. Take her to dinner. Buy her flowers. Buy her something that makes her smile. Her eyes widened. Yes, I said firmly. That's how you're going to pay this fine. And I'm waiving the rest. Your case is dismissed. Destiny covered her mouth, tears spilling, happy tears this time. But I need one more thing from you. I added. I want you to look me in the eye and promise me you'll never take the time you have with your mother for granted. She stepped closer, met my gaze. I promise. Good, I said. Now go give your mother a hug and don't let go for a while. She ran back into Carmen's arms. The courtroom erupted in applause. People were clapping, crying, smiling. For a moment it didn't feel like a courtroom at all. As they walked out arm in arm, Destiny turned back. Thank you for seeing me, she said. I smiled. That's what we try to do here. And as they left, I thought of all of you watching, your parents, your grandparents, the people who have shown up for you. Pick up the phone. Say the words. Life is short. At the end of it all we really have is each other.